This is the 2025 Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek Edition. Is it the ultimate three-row family crossover? Well, we're going to check out all the features and then put it to the test right now on Driving Sports TV. The modern-day Nissan Pathfinder is a three-row crossover with a number of great features that appeal to growing families. It has a V6 engine, can seat up to 8 with room to spare, and it's very easy to drive. With the growing popularity of off-road ready crossovers, it was only a matter of time before Nissan jumped into the fray with a more outdoorsy version of the Pathfinder. And this is the new Rock Creek Edition. It takes everything people already know and like about the Pathfinder and adds all-terrain tires, a tubular roof rack, modified suspension tuning, and a bump of 11 horsepower and torque. And it also has, of course, Rock Creek badging inside and out. Price as you see it here with special two-tone paint and floor mats, $47,390 including destination. Under the hood is Nissan's venerable VQ 3.5-liter V6 engine. Here it produces a peak 295 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. It's connected to a standard 9-speed automatic transmission with paddle shifters. The all-wheel drive system features active brake torque transfer, and it's tuned with 7 terrain modes to optimize the driving experience. The Pathfinder does use a clutch-based power transfer system to shift power from the front to the back wheels. Traditionally, this is referred to as all-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive, so you can just ignore the badge on the back there. This is actually an all-wheel drive system. EPA rates economy of this setup at 20 miles to the gallon in town and 23 on the highway. In terms of styling, we do have some interesting things going on here. First off, these vents are totally fake. And then down here, this might look like it's metal from about 50 feet away. Fact is, yeah, it's just plastic. So the tires they went with here are actually a solid choice. These are Toyo Open Country AT3s. They are mud and snow rated, and they even have a 3-peak deep snow rating. Now they are wrapped around an 18-inch alloy wheel that has a bead lock style design. Obviously, this isn't a real bead locker, but I think the overall effect is a good one. In the back, there is 16.6 cubic feet behind the third row, 45 behind the second, and up to 80 cubic feet with all rows folded flat. Under the floor is extra storage. A Class 2 hitch does come standard. Towing is limited to 6,000 pounds. Like most three-row crossovers, the last row here is suited for small children. The second row features captain's chairs. Passengers get aircon and USB power. There's also a center bin that is removable. Up front, you get a couple rather comfortable seats that feature heat and power adjustments. Gauges are traditional dials with a small digital display in the middle. The main infotainment screen is a tiny 8-inch unit that supports satellite radio, wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Yes, I did say wired. And it also displays the surround view camera system. The Pathfinder obviously made a transition from being a body-on-frame, rugged SUV into this more crossover-y, almost van-like thing around 2013. And I don't really see much different here, if I am remembering correctly. This is I haven't driven one of these since it's been almost a decade, and it's basically what I remember. I think the materials are actually a little bit better in some cases. The seats are a little bit nicer, but yeah, I mean, 8-inch display, traditional gauge cluster. I mean, this just doesn't seem like it's keeping up with the Joneses in terms of tech. Now this does of course have Nissan's active safety system. It does provide adaptive cruise control, collision mitigation, blind spot warning, and also has lane centering tech. We'll play with that in just a little bit. What I'm really intrigued about are the off-road features here. Now we have a little knob that allows me to pick all sorts of different features in terms of setting up the all-wheel drive system, as well as enabling and disabling the hill descent control system. So we will play with that in just a little bit. But I think first, we're gonna head out onto the road and see how this drives, and to see like what is it like driving a Pathfinder with a little bit more power and with big knobby all-terrain tires. I'm expecting it'll be a slightly different experience. So use the weird slider to push us into drive, and away we go. So far, I'm just in normal drive mode. There's no reason to change anything quite yet. The suspension, it feels appropriately soft, at least on this rough road exiting the property. Doesn't sound bad. I mean, it sounds like a VQ motor. They all kind of sound the same. And this one, of course, is tuned to have 11 extra horsepower and 11 extra pound-feet of torque. They do that through just tuning of the motor and requiring premium fuel. So yes, this does require premium fuel if you want the maximum output. The normal Pathfinders can just run on regular unleaded. And I'm gonna... I don't think anybody's going to actually notice the difference. 11 horsepower when you're talking, north of 250 already, it's just not a lot. It's a very small percentage. Let's feel what it's like here with a 0 to 60. I'm going to go into sport mode. Empty highway here. It's mostly level. It's going to do 3, 2, 1 and drop it. Ooh, punch off the line. A lot of power in the upper range, which is interesting. It's keeping me 60. It's keeping me around 4,500 to 5,000, kind of right up in there, which isn't what you traditionally expect with a V6. You expect a lot of low-end grunt. But this one, it seems like it's tuned for higher output at the higher values, which it's kind of interesting. Now, I'm still in sport mode. And yeah, this motor does produce, ooh, that's a lot of torque steer there. Yeah. It kind of feels like a front-wheel drive vehicle. And that is, of course, because this, even though it says four-wheel drive on the back, the fact is this is primarily a front-wheel drive vehicle that uses a clutch pack. I believe it's a magnetic clutch pack to shift power to the back. I hate it when car makers start mixing up nomenclature like that because they want it to appear to be a more rugged and a more capable system than it really is. But here's a fact. A front-wheel drive oriented all-wheel drive system is actually really good for just normal people in slippery conditions like snow. I would have zero issues driving this in the snow, especially with these Toyo open country tires. Now, obviously, if you're driving in the snow, you should always have an appropriate snow tire. But I think, an all-terrain that is snow rated is kind of a nice second if you live in an area where you just don't get a lot of snow. Overall, I feel like this is very floaty on the highway here. And I'm feeling like it's just a little scattered. It's a little bouncy. And that's probably because of the all-terrain tires combined with that soft suspension tuning that they did for this vehicle to make it more off-road friendly. Now, of course, when you make it off-road friendly, sometimes this is what you get. Road manners that aren't exactly the most pleasant. Let's see what Eco is like. Eco, yeah, deadens the throttle a little bit. It's going to try to keep us probably around like 2,000 to 3,000 RPM. And now normal. Of course, the dial here isn't affecting the suspension at all because this is a very straightforward coil spring suspension. There's nothing special about it. It is independent on all four corners. There's no solid axles happening here. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of articulation this thing can manage once we take it off-road. And we are going to take it off-road in just a couple minutes here. The Rock Creek here is actually an interesting mix between the lower like S and SL trims and the off-roady features, because you get the small screen. You get the Apple CarPlay, yet it requires a cable. I don't even carry a cable for that really anymore because everything else has gone wireless. It's definitely showing lack of budget thrown at this vehicle because, hey, it's 2025. Even Toyota has wireless Apple CarPlay standard across their lineup. So I think it's time for Nissan to get this thing up with current tech. There is one thing definitely to be said for the Pathfinder here in general, and this is just blanket for the Pathfinder. V6 engine, seats up to 8 if you get the second row bench, easy to drive, And it's relatively not that expensive for a vehicle that is available with all-wheel drive. So it does make for a good option. And I did look up pricing on these right now, and it appears you can actually get like quite a lot of discount on these from the dealer. So you're not looking necessarily at MSRP, where like obviously if you wanted to get like the latest 4Runner from Toyota, you're going to be paying well over MSRP unless you have the patience of a saint and want to just wait and wait and wait. This one you can get today. Go out, plop your money down. They'll even give, probably take some money off the top and send you on your way. But what you're getting is a vehicle that's not as capable, not as tech forward, and frankly, just not as exciting as something like a 4Runner. So far, at least on the street here, what this Rock Creek is telling me is that anybody who wants this vehicle and wants all the benefits of this vehicle probably should skip on the off-road version of it, because it's just the suspension tuning I don't think works really well. These tires are, I'm hearing a lot of tread noise because they're chunky tire. This is why so many car makers, when they do put all-terrains on like a family vehicle, they go with a mild trail-oriented all-terrain because those are less noisy, they're more friendly to drive, and they don't hit fuel economy quite as badly as an all-terrain tire does. And yes, this Pathfinder does actually, not only does it require premium fuel, it also has, I think it's about 2 mpgs less than a standard all-wheel drive Pathfinder. We've got one more thing to test. We need to test the lane centering and adaptive cruise feature of this. So let's go ahead and hit the little blue button there. It's telling me that my cruise is engaged. Now where's my lane centering? I've got to hit a steering wheel down there. Now it says steering assist is on. I still can't get over the TV commercial that they included on this one. I believe it was for Super Bowl a few years ago when they were doing the tie-ins with Star Wars, and the child was driving and was insecure about driving in traffic. So they suggested you should use this system, and it's like having Obi-Wan speak in your ear. I mean, it was the most absurd and worst use case for these type of systems. It really, really was tone deaf. But as for how this system compares to everybody else, well, let's see. Is it going to keep me centered in the lane? Oh, Obi-Wan, he's speaking to me. Yeah, it's doing a fine job. I do like how the graphics are also very clear, easy to read. There's no doubt as to what's going on right here. I know the system is on because it has a very friendly set of graphics. So overall, on the highway, don't love the suspension setup. The tires are noisy. It's pleasant enough to drive. The power of the engine, I actually like this engine. The VQ Nissan motors, they're kind of fun, but yeah, you kind of gotta flog the thing to really get the get up and go with it. Because down around like 1, 2, 3,000 RPM, where you expect a V6 to really shine, it's not really there. It has more of the characteristics of a turbo, in that most of the power kind of kicks in a little bit later. To hit our fun forest here first. If we can get through that, then we'll escalate and try something harder. Now, the challenge with this section here is really just getting into the course. We have a little hump here in the front. That is a challenge for anything with under 8 inches of ground clearance. And this has 7.7 inches, plus a longish wheelbase. So let's see what we got. So the first thing I'm going to do here before we head into the fun forest is I'm going to pick out a display here that's going to show me more information about what the all-wheel drive system is doing. There's a 4x4-I screen, which is for 4x4 intelligent mode, and it's going to show me how much power is going to the front and the rear. And I'm going to call that off as we go. Now, for the first section here, let's go ahead and pick mud and ruts. That should be more, well, you know what? It's not really mud and ruts. And it's not, what's the other off-road mode? Sand. It's not that either. So let's just keep it in auto for this first section and see how well it does. Now it is freezing outside, literally, so we're not going to have a lot of mud to work with here. And even the gravelly section is a little on the frozen side. So we got to deal with what we got, right? At this point, I'm really worried about scraping the underside. So let's listen. Oh, by the way, that camera is pretty cool. I can see my passenger side front wheel. We're definitely lifting up a wheel in the air there. That's where we would normally grind. I'm gonna grind. Yep, a little bit. Little plastic grinding on the right. I think we'll be fine though. Now in terms of underbody protection, this doesn't really have a lot going on. It's mostly plastic pieces. So we can't get too aggressive with stuff. Man, this thing, it feels really long in here. Wow. Continue on. Now we're going to lift up the passenger rear wheel here. Go super wide because I have to be able to make the turn. Oh yeah, we're definitely lifting that rear wheel. And now we're going to have to start climbing, which means we're going to have to start shifting power around, stopping wheels that are spinning and transmitting that power to the rest of the system. Now, what are we seeing on the outside here? Wheels shifting, power shifting, just keeping that throttle smooth, and it gets us through. Okay. Now right here, I got to watch for that sapling on the side. Make sure we don't hit that. Let's go down into the hole. Oh, man, we are within inches. Couldn't go quite as deep just because of the length of this vehicle. Now we need to climb out of the hole. Definitely lifting a wheel, front driver's side. Just keeping throttle in. It's figuring it out, and away we go. Well, we got through that, so I think we're going to go ahead and go through the moguls next. See how this does. Now, normally the entrance is a little slippery because it's muddy, but right now everything's frozen, so it's rock hard. Sorry. Now in this next section, I am a little concerned about the approach angle. I think it's only about 20 degrees, maybe a little bit better than 20 degrees, so we might rub a little bit. Hopefully not too much. Now this will also test the power shifting side to side, as we're definitely going to be lifting some tires here. So for here, actually, let's go ahead and switch the off-road mode to mud ruts, because this is definitely a rut. We'll see what that does for power transfer. I assume it'll probably allow for additional wheel spin, because typically in mud, you want to be able to fling the mud off of the tires. I'm just going to go super slow because I'm going to listen for grinding, because I think we're going to hit at some point here. Side to side. Now the crawl ratio is not too bad on this. I mean, it's a little surgy because it's clearly not, it's not designed for your ultimate off-roading slow going here. Now I am seeing on the 4x4 traction system, power shifting, it's keeping it, a lot of it about 50-50 now. Yeah, it's using that brake vectoring to kind of get us moving forward. You can see the rear wheel spinning. I add a little more throttle. And down we go. Oof. Kind of surprised by it. Power is shifting front to back a lot. It's keeping it around 50% front to back for the most part, at least here in the Mud Rut program. Okay, that wasn't too bad. We got through that. It's got a couple more features here. Let's go through the sand slide next. Come on, power shift. Ooh, I can hear that brake vectoring kicking in. Basically what it's doing is as a wheel is free spinning, because these are all open differentials, it'll add brakes, which means that power then has to go to the wheel that has grip. Go. And then we got the teeter, using brakes to make sure we don't slam. How we looking here? Let's take a look outside. So this is what you get going with a unibody crossover as opposed to going with a body on frame with a solid axle in the rear. Something like a 4Runner would probably have its wheel probably on the ground here. If not, it would be awfully close. But in this case, yeah, I mean, we got tons of room here, but just because there's just not enough articulation on this. Okay, now we're just going to continue. Listen for grinding. Oop. That power shifting front to back, it's doing its best, getting us up and over with control. That's the key, with control. Okay, we got one more challenge here. Right, so this is the final obstacle before we head out over the ridge road. If I go in the middle of it, we're certainly going to drag the tail, if not the whole undercarriage. So I'm going to go left here and just dip one wheel in. Come on, you gonna do it? Now it's really soft gravel in here, so it's not gonna get much grip. Ooh, ooh. Definitely hit that nose. Ooh, a lot. Let's see if we can go and climb out here a little bit more. Come on, you got this? This is turning out to be one of the harder features. This approach angle is not very good. Got a cliff right in front of us, so definitely don't want to surge there. Okay, I think we got out of that, hopefully with minimal scratching. Tail gonna drag. Come on, you can get this. Come on, power. We're lifting a wheel, definitely. We're definitely lifting a wheel here. Just keeping power easy, around 10%, because I don't want to surge out. I don't want to go boom, because that's when you break things. Right, okay, well, you know, it's not great off-road. The dimensions are a problem. The all-wheel drive system does seem to take a little extra time to figure things out, which isn't ideal. But, you know, if you just need basic off-road functionality, I think this vehicle does provide what you need, and obviously in the ability to seat 7. Now, that all said, I think they over-tired this vehicle. You don't need this chunky of an off-road tire for a vehicle that is as capable as this one is, as in it didn't impress me with its capability. Honestly, I think a trail tire would be a much better choice. You're going to get less road noise, better fuel economy, and let's be honest about the capability of this thing. You can't just throw on big chunky all-terrain tires and think that it's going to be like, you know, the next Iron Man. It's just not. So, for Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. This has been my review of the new, well, fairly new, Pathfinder Rock Creek. It's an interesting vehicle. I think the price is good for what you're getting. Just be aware this is not the most modern of interiors. And yeah, the all-wheel drive system, it's just okay. What do you think? Post a comment below. We'll see you again right here real soon.